Welcome back to Tiny Grimes Games, and I'm here to tell you today why I think Gala Collider is so much fun. Essentially what we have here is a company that has dared to combine two of my favorite genres, the TCG genre and 4X games. That's right, think Hearthstone mashed together with Civilization, though really neither game plays quite like Gala Collider. As in most games, you build a deck, you have a handful of cards that you draw and maintain. However, while most TCGs have, let's be frank, a fairly boring board where you just plop units down onto it, in Gala Collider you have a robust map, a galaxy full of planets that you're trying to explore, exploit for resources, and eventually exterminate your opponents. Like most games, you have different types of cards. You have ships, you have buildings, and you have operations. Operations function sort of as actions. And so our goal is to occupy a bunch of planets and play our ships and buildings on these planets to start dominating the galaxy. So for instance, I'll go ahead and play a building here so I get more resources every turn. And I'll make a ship so that I can start taking things over. Another fascinating part about Gala Collider is the resource system. Unlike TCGs, where you basically get one per turn, or maybe hope to gain one resource per turn, in Gala Collider, your resources are generated by your planet. So your home world is generating resources. Each of the other planets you occupy are generating resources. So each game plays a little bit different because your opponent doesn't really know what the resources that you are producing unless they've actually investigated those planets. Additionally, since you can't actually save up resources, the game moves along really quickly. And what I mean by this is each turn you regenerate the resources that are allotted to you. That is, you can't stockpile them. This means you should probably just play some cards because just sitting there doing nothing doesn't really gain you much. So for instance, I'll go ahead and play this bruiser over here to keep my game moving. Additionally, I'll draw a card and hope to get some other things to do. And finally, I'll play another card. What's really interesting about this resource system also is that you're never really stuck where you can't do anything because you're always able to trade your resources around to be able to make new resources. So for instance, I could play this slip deck if I want by simply trading resources to be able to play it. So now I've traded resources, I've made 4 purple resources I didn't have before, and suddenly now I'm a little bit closer to winning the game. Another aspect of Gala Collider that I really like are the different win scenarios. So it's not as simple as the traditional TCG where you're just trying to hit your opponent for so much life and then you win the game. In Gala Collider, there's different ways to win. One way to win is to just sneak over to your opponent's homeworld and take it. If you can take their homeworld, you are the victor. Another way is to try to contest all of their planets. So if I can put a ship at each of this person's planets, then I'll be able to win. That's a little bit less likely. Probably the most likely way to win is to get your victory points, these stars. It shows I have 30. If I can get them to 50, I'll be able to win the game. And victory points are accrued by simply taking over planets. As you can see, this one is worth 5. My homeworld was worth 10. And each of the buildings that you produce have a star value as well. So the TI conduit is worth 2. And then we have the slip deck is also worth 2. So this adds up. And what usually happens is you end up colliding over a planet and battling over it. And whoever ends up winning that planet will usually end up the person who gets to 50 stars faster. Another thing I like a lot is that you're able to draw whenever you want. And so here I was able to spend 2 resources to draw a card and get this ship so I could have another card to play. Another aspect of Gala Collider that's really fun are the simultaneous turns. So since this is a complicated game and a lot is going on, it really helps being able to play your turns at the same time. I don't have to sit there and watch my opponent think and think and think more and more as they try to figure out what they're going to do on their turn. They're going to play their turn, they're going to move on and be done, and then we can continue on with our game. In addition to that, it allows all kinds of interesting bluffing mechanics to develop. What I mean by bluffing mechanics is with turns happening at the same time, it's unclear what exactly is going to happen. So my opponent can see that I have these purple ships here, just as I can see that they have a red ship at their home world. But neither of us knows where the other one is going to go. And so it opens up all kinds of interesting strategy. Is my opponent going to send his ship to the planet that I want to take over? Is he going to send it to a different ship to hide? Do I have a big ship that I want to fight with? Or do I have a ship that I don't really want to fight with? I want to do more of a sneak attack. So for instance, with this great tree, I definitely want to fight with that ship. And so I'll try to engage as much as I can. Whereas my opponent might think, I don't really want to fight if my opponent is going to have a giant ship and I have a little one. So as it stands here, I'm trying to make a beeline for his home world before he can be completely set up. We'll see if it works out. Another really interesting mechanic about Gala Collider is its reshuffling mechanic. So if you look at the deck here on the right, it says I only have 10 cards left in my deck. And normally in a TCG, that would be a bit worrisome. Ooh, I better make sure I don't deck myself or I'll lose. That's simply not the case though in Gala Collider. It's much more similar to a deck building mechanic where when you run out of cards, your deck is actually going to be reshuffled up. Now what makes Gala Collider so interesting and I haven't seen before is that its shuffling mechanic is quite innovative. Instead of having every card you've played shuffled back into your deck, it's only the cards that aren't on the board. So you can have your initial deck full of early game ships and buildings that you want to get out, but you don't want to see again in the late game. Well, that's fine. As long as they don't die, they end up not in your deck, and you can have a deck that's populated with more of the cards you want. In fact, as you get closer to the end game, you can start buying more powerful cards called tech cards that when you buy them, they don't go into your deck, they go into your discard pile. But what we just said is when your discard pile reshuffles into your deck, suddenly you'll have these available to you. So for instance, for 8 cost, for 8 research, I could put 3 of these in my deck. I don't have 8 research right now, so I think what I'll do is put this into my deck. I have a whole bunch of ships. I'm looking to be aggressive with them. If we do get to a reshuffle moment, I wouldn't mind having this in my deck. So I buy it, it goes into my discard pile, and now when my deck does reshuffle, that very powerful card will be at my disposal. So I'm going to continue my assault on my opponent's home world. It looks like my opponent is not reacting all that well to this. He only has 1 ship there. So we'll see if we can end up finishing him off before he's able to fully react to what we're trying to do. Uh-oh. That looks like our opponent was on to us. He figured something was amiss, and he does have a ship here defending his home planet. And it looks like it's a pretty good ship to fight against us. We'll go ahead and engage. And this is one of the other really fun things about Gala Collider. When you have combat in Gala Collider, it's not simply 2 things meet, one of them goes away. Combat is fulfilling. You click on something, and when it blows up, it blows up. Alright, no one died here, so we don't get to see the blow up. But don't worry, something will. Because I'm going to be moving my big beefy boy over here. And my opponent can't build anything else at his home world because we are occupying it. And guess what? He doesn't have as many resources now because we're occupying it and we're cutting it down. And I don't see any other planets, any other ships roaming around here. So we'll see if we can put this away. Alright, so we're back at the home planet with yet another battle. The Liberator is hanging on, but I don't think it's going to be any match for our great tree and his friends. Here we go. Kaboom. Kablamo. A bunch of ships died, including his. But really all that matters is we have our great tree here. So we were able to draw a card which puts more troops onto this planet. So we'll go ahead and add 2 more troops to the planet. And it looks like we should be able to take this planet unless our opponent has something very devious for us. It looks like our opponent did not have anything in store. And we are in fact victorious. So in summary, I find Gala Collider to be a very fun game. Every game is a bit different. There's many ways to play the game with a variable map, different resources every game. They play a little bit differently. Each of the factions has a different approach. The bottom line is it ends up being a game that doesn't feel repetitive. Each game is a little bit different. It's a fascinating game. I think you should all go out and try it. Make sure you check out their Kickstarter campaign, and I've included a link at the bottom for it. So I'll see you next time at Tiny Grimes Games.